Yes, hello everyone. Welcome to the demo for the rental management system. So basically, this system works this way. If let's assume you got rentals, you are managing some rentals somewhere, and you need to capture the details of the tenants. You need to capture the details of the rooms. You need to capture payments, monthly payments. You can do tracking of monthly payments for each rooms. At the same time, you can do an SMS. You can send SMS to the tenants. Maybe there's a very important communication you need to pass to your tenants. Then you can also record expenses. Then you can view the transactions. Those are basically the M-Pesa transactions, because the system has been integrated with an M-Pesa. So you basically collect your rent payments via M-Pesa automatically through the system. So we log in using the username and the password. Mhm. So after you've successfully logged in, you will be redirected to the dashboard. So basically, dashboard has the statistics about the system. So maybe this one will check a little bit later. So the first point is to configure the system so that you get the required data. For example, there is a module for property. So the first thing is to add property. But before you add property, you've got the property categories. Maybe you've got a rental, you've got an hostel, maybe you've got some shops you are running somewhere. So basically, this is where you add the property categories. So as you can see, we've got hostels, we've got rentals. So basically, at this point, you can add another category. Yeah. Then again, we've got property variations. So for property variations, let's say you're dealing with rentals, and for rentals you might have one bedroom, you might have two bedroom, three bedroom, you might have a bed sitter. So basically, property variations are the property variations are the individual subtypes of a property particular property. So for example, for rentals, as I just said earlier, for rentals we might have one bedroom, we might have two bedroom, we might have three bedroom, and basically the rent per month for these particular variations are different. So that's why you need to configure them differently in the system. Yeah. So for example, you can have a variation called room type. So we've got a variation name and a variation value. So for room type, we've got a single room, like the one in the system at the moment. The room type has two variation values. Number one is a single room, then the second one is a bed sitter. So you might have a two bedroom, so you just add another variation. So basically here you can add the variation name, then you add the values. So for example, we add room type, so you have the room type here. Then for room variation, you add the variation values here. So for example, you add one bedroom, then you add another one, two bedroom. Yeah, that way. So at that point, we've configured the property variations and the property categories. So the next step is to add your property. Remember, this system can accommodate as much as property you might be having. Yeah, it can accommodate as much as property you might be having. So you have the property name. Maybe let's call it XYZ property. Then the property category, maybe we do rentals. Then maybe location, we do Nairobi, Kenya. Then caretaker name. Of course, you might be having caretaker, so you can just do then phone number. Then now the variation type for that particular property, we will be using the room type. So if you click room type, you see the property variations have been highlighted here automatically the moment we click the room type. So, for example, for the room type, we've got the single room and the bed sitter. So you just specify the number of single rooms you have, maybe two. You specify the number of bed sitters you have, maybe two again. Then rent per month. How much do you charge a single room per month? Maybe 2,000. How much do you charge a bed sitter per month? Maybe 1,000. Then you just save. So after adding the property, if you go to property listing, this will give you a list of all the properties that you are having. So you can see the XYZ property, you've got the category, you've got the location, caretaker name, phone number, and the creation date. You can view the property, you can edit the property, and you can delete the property. So remember, for deleting a property, you can only delete a property when you've not added any rooms, there are no tenants. At that point, you are allowed to delete. But the moment you'll be adding rooms and tenants, you won't be able to delete. So editing, you can maybe make some changes to the property and then you update. You can view property. So let's view the property and see. So if you do view the property, this is now a management console of a property. So like you've got the rent income, you've got the rent arrears, you've got the total number of rooms, you've got rented rooms. At the moment we've got a total number of 4 rooms. 0 rooms have been rented, 4 rooms are still vacant. Then we've got 2 property variations. We've got 0 tenants and expenses are still 0. Then at this point, you've got the variations. You see we've got 2 single rooms, 2 bed sitters, 0 rented, two rooms vacant in each property variation, and you've got the rent per month. You can as well add another variation value, provided at the moment we started with a single room and a bed sitter. So you can as well do another variation type. Let's say now you've got 1 bedrooms in that particular property, so you can as well add 1 bedroom. So I'll take you quickly to let me just finish with the property listing. So basically these are just to export. If you want to do a report, you can always export that data. Yeah, so that was for property. So we'll come back to property a little bit later. But then now let's do the next step, which is room listing. So like you added the property. What next? You now add the rooms. Maybe For single rooms. For single rooms, maybe you have only two rooms, maybe room one and room two. So you just come here and add a room. So you select the property, you select the property variation. Why is it not coming? Yeah, you select the property variation, so maybe the single room, then you you input the room number. So let's do letter A. Then for maximum occupant, if at all you've got a restriction of the number of people you want to occupy a particular room. So basically this one applies only if you also have like hostels. Yeah, if you have a property dealing with hostels. Yeah, so like for hostel you might want one room to contain only four people, so you might do that restriction. But for rentals, you can just do no maximum number, then you just add the room. Yeah, so room added successfully. So if you do search the room, so for you to see the rooms, you search. So we select XYZ property, then room status. So for the room status, we have two, rented and vacant. At the moment, we've not assigned that room to any tenant. So to mean the room is vacant. Rented means you've assigned that room to someone. In other terms, that room is occupied at that particular moment. So at the moment, if we do vacant, we should be able to get our room. We should be able to get room A, the one we just added a few minutes ago. Yeah, so you see we got the room. So you get the property, you get the room type, you get the room number, you get the maximum number of occupants. Vacant, yes, so this means that the room is vacant at the moment. Then room status, active. There is no problem with the room. To some extent, maybe you might not allow tenants to rent a particular room due to some reasons. Maybe you are doing some renovation for maybe 2 months, so you should just deactivate the room so that no one can rent the room. But by default, when you add a room, the status is active. You can view room, you can edit the room property. Like you can change the number, maximum number of occupants. You can delete a room. At this point, you can also delete a room. You can also delete a room if it has not been rented. Yeah, so that's the only point you'll be allowed to delete a particular room if it has not been rented. So if we do click view room, let's see what happens. So this is the room we just added. So you get the total number of tenants. So at the moment we've got zero. Revenue income still zero. Rent area still zero. Everything is still zero. Rent payments, basically at this point you'll be getting the transactions made towards that particular room, the M-Pesa transactions, or rather the rent payments made towards particular that room. So at the moment it's still blank. So we'll check it later. So that was for room listing. For room adjustments, so let's just select this property. Basically for room adjustments, this one means, let's assume you've got a property with you've got a property with you've got a property with two bedrooms. So with the two maybe let's do two one bedrooms. So if you have another room, or maybe you build another 1 bedroom, so you need to adjust so that you can capture that particular room. So let's say you add room A and room B, but then now you added another room, or rather you built another room. So you should be able to adjust the total number of rooms for that particular property and property variation. Yeah. So that's why you come and select maybe the property. You select which after selecting the property, you select which variation. So like at the moment maybe we are dealing with single room. Then the quantity, how many rooms do you want to add? Previously, when you are configuring the rental management system with the property and the rooms, you only add maybe 2 single rooms. But then now you built another 2 single rooms. So you just enter 2. Yeah, and you click adjust rooms, and the total number of rooms will be increased. Then the next module is tenants. Now you set up the property, you set up the rooms. Now you've got a property and you've got the rooms, but the rooms are still vacant. You still don't have any tenant. So at this point you might want to add the tenants. So basically this one is now for tenant listing. You can actually search for a particular property. You might want to look for tenants. Search tenants. Yeah. So if you do tenant searching, you have to select property. Then now you can see the tenants we have for this particular property. Yeah. So I just selected a property that already has tenants. Yeah. So you get the tenant details. Yeah, you can view the details of the tenant. Let's see when we view what happens. Yeah, you get the details, everything, the room number, tenancy start date. So you get the start date of that particular. You get the start date, or rather the date the tenant came in or started renting the property or the room. End date, still an active tenant means the tenant is still renting your property. Yeah. But if the tenant leaves, then you should get the tenancy end date. Then rent payment, so this one has paid nothing at the moment. Yeah, an assigned room means you end the tenancy period to mean this person is now living. So that's the point where now you unassign the room. So if this person is living in that room alone, the moment you unassign, then that room will become vacant. But in the case of an hostel, maybe where you might be having four students per room, if you unassign this tenant the room, then it will still remain rented. Yeah, that one only applies to in case you also have maybe hostels somewhere. Yeah, rent payments basically means how the tenant has been paying the rent. So you get the transactions here, everything. So that one was for just listing. Now let's see how you add a tenant. So if you want to add a tenant, you choose the property. After choosing the property, you enter maybe just a unique identifier of the tenant. If you'll be using maybe ID number or registration number in case of students, then you have the phone number, then you have the full name, you have maybe the alternative phone number, and you have the email address, which is optional. Then you just add the tenant. Now, the next step after adding the tenant, the next step is to assign that particular tenant uh, a room. Is to assign that particular tenant a room. So, like, I just wanted us to check the room status for this particular property, because this property has a lot more data than the rest. So you can see the room numbers, you can see the vacancy status. So basically, these rooms are vacant, and then you can also see the room status, whether active or inactive. So if you go to the property listing and we do this one, if you view property, yeah, so this one is one of the property that already has data. So you can see we've got 80 rooms, we've got 80 total rooms of total a total of 80 rooms, 71 rooms have been rented, 9 rooms are still vacant. We've got a total of 100 tenants. This is the rent income. Then these are the rent arrears. Then now this is the point where now you assign. This is now the point where you assign the room to someone. So you select which room do you want to assign. Is it a bed sitter? Is it a single room? So maybe we do single room. Then you select the rooms. So these are the rooms that are still vacant. So maybe we do 7S. Then you now select the tenant. So at this point, we don't have a tenant who has not been assigned any room. That's why you see we don't get any tenant here. This means at this point, all the tenants have been assigned rooms. So there is no tenant who has not been assigned any room. So that's why we don't get any data. Then the next point will be to choose the room assignment date, or maybe the tenancy start date. Yeah, so you just do any date. Yeah, that is appropriate. That is the one for assigning room. Adding another tenant applies in the case of maybe you are running hostels. So room A, you had assigned person A room A, but now person B comes and you need to assign the same room you assigned person A, I mean, to person B. So you just add another tenant. You just add another. You just add another tenant to that room that is already rented. So you still select the property variation. After selecting the property variation, you select which room. Like you see at the moment, all these rooms have been rented. But then we might decide that room 52 we might want to add another tenant. So you select the tenant again. But at the moment, we still don't have any tenant who is missing a room at the moment. So that's why we don't get any tenant to add to a particular room. Yeah. So earlier I said we will be coming back to the managing property, the console you are seeing here, or rather the dashboard. Uh, you can see we've got the variations. So you get the total number of rooms, rented rooms, vacant rooms, and then rent per month. Then rent payments, basically these are not the transactions. These are not the transactions for that particular room or that particular property. Yeah. for that particular property. So these transactions are real time. These ones were paid via M-Pesa pay bill. So when someone is paying, the way the integration was done, when someone is paying, you enter the pay bill and then you enter the room number as the account number. You enter the room number as the account number. So for example, you see this transaction, this person paid 1,000 shillings. The transaction came from this number, and then this was the name of the person who paid. Then this is the room number. Then that transaction went to this particular person. You can see it's the same person, Josephine Siameto. So this is how the tenant was added to the system. But now this is the name from the M-Pesa transaction. Then we've got the phone number here. Yeah, so later we'll come back to the transactions and see how it works. So basically, these are the rent transactions that have been made towards this particular property. So later on, we'll explain the status pending, what does status pending means, what does status processed means. Yeah, so there's a model for the rent payment. So we'll come back later to that. So at the same time, you can export this data and maybe view it later for reporting purposes. Yeah, so the next thing is now, so we've configured the property, we've added the rooms, we've added the tenants, we've assigned room to the tenant. What next? Now payment. So we now check at the payments. So as I said earlier, this is how the system captures the payments at the moment. The tenant pays via M-Pesa pay bill. So we have the pay bill number. So if you do want to pay for a room, so let's assume I'm renting room A. So if I do want to pay my rent maybe for the month of October, what I just do an M-Pesa transaction. So I just use the Lipa na M-Pesa pay bill. I enter the pay bill number. Then the room number, I now enter maybe A as the room number. Then that transaction will reflect automatically to my account. So let me explain. These are the payment transactions, all the payment transactions, but you can do per property and per room number. So let's pick one transaction. So I'll pick two to explain confirmed, status confirmed, and whether the transaction has been confirmed or not confirmed. So let me start with this one. So this is a transaction that was made by this user via this mobile number, and the amount was 3,000 Kenyan shillings. Then it was paid to room 60. Then we've got the property. Then we've got the tenant. So you can see when the tenant is the one who paid, then the phone number is also the same. So I'll go ahead and explain what confirmed means and what the status means. So let's assume I've rented room one. Let's assume I've rented room one. So in the system, it's written as room one. For example, you see the 24 here. So I've rented room one. Now when I want to pay, instead of writing 1 as a digit, I write 1 as a number. So in the system, the room name or the name of the room is 1 as a digit, but when I was paying, I entered one I entered one in terms of letters. So at that point, the transaction will go through successfully, but the status will be confirmed will be no. Meaning the system tried to search for room one, the one for letters, but it didn't get. So what next? The reason why you see confirmed, let me just show you the one which is confirmed is, let me search where confirmed is. Oh, okay. So all these have been confirmed. All these have been confirmed. Yeah, you can see already confirmed. So what I'll do, I'll search for another transaction that has not been confirmed. But then now let's just do the one for confirmed. So if I'm staying in room one, then while paying account number, I just do one, then it will come as confirmed. Status pending. Status pending means we've not processed the transaction. Yes, we paid maybe 2,000, but then it has not been effected to this particular user. So that's why it's saying pending. So let's assume in the month of October, I should be paying a rent of 2,000. I should be paying a rent of 2,000. Then today is date 18, so I've not paid still, but now today I pay the 2,000. So the moment I pay the 2,000, the moment that transaction will be processed, as in that particular transaction will be associated with my account. That's the moment the status will be processed instead of pending. But then before it be processed, it will remain to pending, so that you might know which transactions are still pending. And another reason that might lead to a transaction being pending is while paying, you do a different number. Like you are staying in room one, but while paying, you do the one for letters. So that transaction will not be confirmed. So you have to confirm a transaction first before it being processed. So if I'm staying in room one digit, but then I paid using room one letters, so we confirm the transaction first, and now the transaction will be processed. The amount I paid will be reflected to my account. So basically, that's how the transaction thing works. So we might want to search for another property where we might get a transaction that has not been confirmed. So all these have been confirmed, and these have been confirmed. Let me search this one. That one has no transaction. Shops, all confirmed. No transaction. No transaction. No transaction. Okay, basically I see all the transactions we have. Since this one was just a quick demo, I can see that all the transactions we have been confirmed. They have all been confirmed. So basically, what happens? Oh, yes, we got one. We got one that has not been confirmed. So this is a very good example. You see this particular transaction. This one was paid by this tenant, but then for the room number, or rather the account number while paying, the tenant decided to write the phone number, but we don't have this particular room. So that's why the transaction has been marked as confirmed. The confirmed status is still no. So to mean the system cannot the system cannot identify this particular transaction, and it can't associate it with a particular tenant. So that's why you need to confirm. So what happens if you do get a transaction that has not been confirmed? Then I'm assuming you might know the person, or maybe the tenant might come to you that I paid, and then you search the transaction, you get it was not confirmed. So the next thing to do is to confirm the transaction. So you get this particular page where you see paid by, the amount paid, the account number. You see this was the account number. So basically this is the room number, but we don't have that kind of room. So that's why the transaction has not been confirmed. Then the payment date, the payment mode, the pay bill paid, the transaction, the M-Pesa transaction code. So you see payment confirmed is still no, then payment processed is still no. These are the details of that particular transaction, the amount paid. So basically, you just confirm this transaction. If you've known whoever paid, so you can just select the property. Maybe you select this one, then you select the room number. Now we are assuming now you know the room for that particular tenant. You just select. So let's even do that one. Mm, then okay, the room I chose is not the room for that particular tenant. So that's why you're seeing a different tenant. So if we do maybe 36s, you see you get the tenants for that particular room. To some extent, uh, for example, in the case of hostels, a parent might pay for the student. Yeah. So that one also you might want to be confirming the transaction. So we might even credit this transaction to this user. Yeah, now the payment has been confirmed. So if we go back to rent payments, I've just copied the M-Pesa transaction code. Then if you paste it here, you see now the transaction has been confirmed, and you see now the room, and you see the tenant now has changed. And now confirm this. Yes. So basically, that's how the transaction thing works. As simple as that. So the next thing you might want to do is to track the rent payments. You want to know who has not paid, who paid last month, who paid partially last month, who did not pay last month totally. So that's what we call rent payment trackers. So we might do maybe for this particular property. So you get for a particular room. So for example, for room 76, for room 76B, for period of April 2020, we got the rent amount, the amount paid, the balance due, and then you see fully paid. Room 71B, April 2020, you see 6,000, amount paid was 3,000, balance due was 3,000, actually paid. The same applies to maybe room 75B. For the period of March 2020, the rent amount was 12,000. The only 7,000 was paid. Balance due was 5,000 partially paid. So you get partially paid and you get fully paid. You get partially paid and fully paid. At the same time, you also get those who have not paid at all at all. So you can see we've got full payments. So the first one you've seen was for everything: partial payments, full payments, rent arrears, everything. But now this one is now for full payments. You want to check which months and which rooms were paid in full. For example, for room maybe 45, 48S, for the period of March 2020, the rent amount was 8,000, amount paid was 8,000, and balance due was zero. So that was fully paid. You might also want to check those who have paid partially. You must also want to see those who have paid partially for a specific period of time. So you see room 71B, April 2020, the rent amount was 6,000, amount paid was 3,000, balance due 3,000, partially paid. Then you might also want to see those who have not paid for a particular month. Yeah. So now basically this one was for hostel, for example, whereby the rooms, basically the rooms were the beds. So like in one room you got four beds. So you each student only pays for the bed. Yeah. So like you see, this particular student who was occupying bed 4 for the period of June 2020, he or she was supposed to pay 2,000 but never paid. So balance due still running at 2,000. That's why you see payment status as due. So basically you can track each room, the payment status of each room for a particular property for a specific period of time. You might want to do, like, you can even do like January 2020. You want to see those who paid fully, those who paid partially, those who didn't pay at all. Yeah. So these transactions come via M-Pesa. The system picks them automatically and then credit. The system now will credit, or rather will process that transaction to the specific tenant who has paid, if at all that transaction has been confirmed. If it has not been confirmed, they had been asked the authority to credit that transaction to a particular tenant, having known whoever paid and maybe the room number. Yeah. Then we add a module for bulk SMS where maybe you need to update or rather pass communication to the tenants. Maybe you need to do something on rent updates. Maybe you need to do something on maybe cleaning. You need to do something on maybe fumigation. Just the general communication. Maybe now you don't want them to. Maybe they were paying through cash, but then now you've introduced an M-Pesa pay bill. So you just need to pass that communication to them. Maybe rent updates. Maybe you want to increase the rent, or maybe you want to reduce the rent for some particular reasons. So you can just do an SMS and you can search based on a particular property. Yeah. So you see, like this one is an example of a message that was sent. So what happens? You come to create SMS. So the system has been integrated with bulk messaging so that it allows you to create SMS. So you just select which property do you want to send SMS to. You do a title for the message. Then contact source. So contact source, we've got two types. We've got the tenant contact list, or you can enter recipient contacts manually. So for tenant contact list, if I do select this particular property and I select tenant contact list, then this message will be sent to all the tenants for that particular property. But if I do enter recipient contacts, maybe I only need to pass communication to only one tenant, telling them to pay the rent. So you just enter the recipient. You just enter the numbers. If you want to contact maybe two people, you just separate with a comma. Yeah. Then you enter the message, then you create. The moment you create, the tenant or the tenants will start receiving the SMS via the registered. Remember, when we were registering the tenant, you have to put the phone number. So the tenant will receive that particular SMS. Yeah. Then another thing was for expenses. This one is just for recording purposes. Maybe you want to keep track of maybe the expenses. So maybe you've done a fumigation, maybe you bought some chemicals. So you just need to do a tracking of that expense. So you can just add a new expense where you select the property, you do the title, and maybe if it's associated with a certain amount, you can just do the amount. Yeah, that's all for expense. Maybe you're doing repainting, or maybe only for one particular room. So you might want to capture that so that you can actually do a good reporting of the expenses. And you can see you've got the options to export for reporting purposes. Now the last one is the module for user management. So if you do want to add another user maybe to help you in management, then you just do a new user name, email address, username, and a password. Yes, so that's all for the system. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm glad to answer any question that you might be having. Bye.